machines. This is a company that wants to bring machines here to be used for cancer patients. They never went to China to a hospital so that they can benchmark. They went to a limited company that makes machines that are supposed to be brought to this country, Mr. Speaker, to be used and utilized to treat cancer, Mr. Speaker. So they cannot be sent to be a private trip to benchmark, Mr. Speaker, to see, I don't know, to visit. This was an invitation to see the technology that we have right now for treating cancer. And Mr. Speaker, someone who carries a pistol, who is a trained officer, Mr. Speaker, to protect the governor, cannot tell us they went there because they are the governor's security and the governor was not there. Let everyone stick to their profession. Let the oncologists be the ones to be sent, Mr. Speaker, to benchmark. You cannot use public funds, Mr. Speaker, even to travel to Nairobi, Mr. Speaker. Maybe even their trip in China was funded by China, Mr. Speaker. But you find claims that these officers use money. That's why they were looking for these approvals, Mr. Speaker, for their local travel to, and when they were coming back, Mr. Speaker. So you cannot use a coin of public funds, Mr. Speaker, not even to buy a biscuit, Mr. Speaker, without following the due process. Mr. Speaker, the Council for Governor, that is one Dastan Omari, Mr. Speaker, I've heard something before this Honorable House that we passed the budget, the governor, the office of the governor is using to illegally employ people, that we are guilty, that we should be guilty as a house, Mr. Speaker, because we passed the budget, Mr. Speaker. It's like telling a parent, Mr. Speaker, it's because, Mr. Speaker, it's like telling a parent, Mr. Speaker, because you sent your child to school and the child was hit by a bus, that is your mistake. We passed the budget, we gave it to the governor. In one instance, we gave her even directions to give us, Mr. Speaker, policy directions on how she's going to buy live animals. She never brought them. She started doing okolea, Mr. Speaker, with money meant for buying live animals without any policy. We gave her money to pay the required number of staff who are 38 in our office. She used this to stretch and pay people peanuts to employ many without going through the service board. Then she employed, Mr. Speaker, 103 people masqueraded as senior staff, others as cleaners. Then she employed them, Mr. Speaker, and on further interrogation, some of them are mother-daughter, with birth certificates attached, without any shame. And then you tell us we are guilty because we passed the budget, as if we should not deny the office of the governor budget for staff. She goes and overstretches. Then we are told not to do oversight. What we are doing is the oversight for the funds we allocated. And that oversight includes impeachment, Mr. Speaker. One of the duties allocated to this House by the Constitution is oversight, legislation, representation, Mr. Speaker. And the fourth one that is not very pronounced, impeachment, Mr. Speaker. And that's why we are here today. The question of gender that was brought by Dustin Omari, Mr. Speaker, I would like to urge the Council to stay and see how the female members of this House will vote. And Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether the voters of Meru were not gender sensitive when they were electing a female governor. And like I suggested to someone who called, Mr. Speaker, to suggest that we are impeaching the governor because of her gender. And that county as a female governor, I told them to give us theirs, we give them ours. Mr. Speaker, traffic marshals. The Council for Governor Dustin Omari said that the traffic marshals have solved so many problems, and we should not be talking about them, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, we are not talking about them. Mr. Speaker, there exists an enforcement unit that has been hired regularly in this county, Mr. Speaker. Just because it's not the governor who hired them, she pushed them aside, created officers called traffic marshals, bought some bikes, hired people. She wrote first of all to the County Public Service Board. The letters are here. The Public Service Board refused to create those offices. She negated that advice. She created them herself, then masqueraded them in the payroll as cleaners, then gave them bikes. Of course, they are doing all these arrests or the arbitrary arrests and everything, and to make us up. What was the procedure of employing them? Why not use the existing enforcement officers in this county, Mr. Speaker, who are now jobless because their jobs have been taken over by bouncers, Mr. Speaker, in the name of traffic marshals, who are harassing even people in town? Because if you listen to what the governor was saying from the video is, Mr. Speaker, she was saying, we want to use them to oversight county employees. They're even harassing county employees. We want to use them to oversight people who are collecting revenue to see whether they are eating the revenue. Mr. Speaker, she has her own oversight when she is supposed to be oversighted. Reverse roles, Mr. Speaker. The role of oversight is not ours. It's not for her to create traffic marshals to oversight county officers. It's for this House, Mr. Speaker, to oversight everybody who is employed in this county, Mr. Speaker. The governor, Mr. Speaker, the other lie we were told is that the deputy governor is claiming to have used money, yet he is claiming that he has no roles, Mr. Speaker. It's not up to the governor to decide when the deputy governor has roles. These roles have been allocated by the Constitution. When we went for the Nakuru meeting of all the leaders of this county, Mr. Speaker, the deputy governor could not have been left or go to seek for permission from the governor, because this is one of the instances where he spent his own money to facilitate his staff, to get them where they're going to sleep so that we can attend the State House meeting in Nakuru, Mr. Speaker. Since he was not in speaking terms with the governor, Mr. Speaker, he fueled his car, he did everything on his own. Whereas he should be facilitated as an officer, Mr. Speaker, who came to office through the Constitution. So when the lawyer tries, Mr. Speaker, to give us half-truths, that it's up to the governor to decide what the deputy governor does, Mr. Speaker, nothing can be further from the truth. Then the lawyer went aside to tell us, Mr. Speaker, that the governor of Meru County delivers a mandate, Mr. Speaker, from a manifesto. I never saw her swearing in holding the manifesto, Mr. Speaker, when she was sworn in. I saw her holding the Constitution and promising to abide by it, Mr. Speaker. So we are going to subject her to the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, not to the manifesto, Mr. Speaker. That is a foreign document to this House. The voters elected the manifesto of creating marshals, Mr. Speaker, like they are averring, Mr. Speaker. Nothing can be further from the truth. And Mr. Speaker, this issue that the governor of Meru County, our actual name is just Kawira Mwangaza, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my name on my ID used to be Dennis Kiogora Peter. But Mr. Speaker, I changed my name to Dennis Kiogora DMK. Mr. Speaker, I do not get offended whenever I see documents in this House referring to me still as Dennis Kiogora Peter, because that was still my name, Mr. Speaker. And it will continue to be, even my bank accounts, Mr. Speaker, my certificates, Mr. Speaker, are like that, and I use them, and they get accepted, Mr. Speaker. And I know you know very well, learned councils, that these are the things in the law that are called, Mr. Speaker, de minimis non curat lex. The law does not concern itself with trivial things, Mr. Speaker. These are just trivialities that cannot be admitted in this House, that cannot be admitted to be part of the motion, Mr. And if at all they believed it's not always been impeached, they should not even have bothered to go to the courts, filing numerous lawsuits that have been thrown out all the way to the Court of Appeal, Mr. Speaker. Even as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the Learned Counsel, Dustin Omari, Mr. Speaker, lied to this House, Mr. Speaker. The governor cannot be, Mr. Speaker, penalized through impeachment, Mr. Speaker. The Constitution, Mr. Speaker, says that anyone who breaks any part that I read in Article 75 is to be removed from office, Mr. Speaker, through the prescribed process. Then he tells us the governor cannot be punished for the acts of the juniors, Mr. Speaker, of the county secretary. Whereas we have seen letters where the county secretary signs, and down there he says for the governor. Just because the governor has allocated the responsibility of writing documents that they discuss or they agree on. For example, the ones of hiring 8 more chief officers, Mr. Speaker, without the approval of the County Public Service Board, it is signed by the county secretary for the governor, Mr. Speaker. She will be punished for what she did and what she never did. If the county governor, Mr. Speaker, is not the one who is responsible for this, then she should have fired the county secretary. Because the county secretary is still at work, so if at all he is doing things without consulting the governor and appointing people left, right, and center and transferring people, Mr. Speaker, then the governor ought to be punished for leaving her office, Mr. Speaker, naked, so that somebody else can be put into that office who is going to see what is happening, Mr. Speaker. So whether she omitted, Mr. Speaker, acting, or she committed by acting directly, Mr. Speaker, she is guilty as charged. Then, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I would like to quote what